Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the T on Interracial Relationships. My name is Miss T. And listen, Lee High School's School Board of Education has decided and voted to change the name of the school. So we have come very far, but I think we're at a crossroads of who will be funding the change of the name. And with that being said, it's based on a technicality, but we all know that we can raise the funds to do what we need to do. I wanted to get into why is it that Lee High School in Huntsville, Alabama was named after General Robert E. Lee of the Confederate Army, whom you know was involved in heading a civil war between the northern free states and the southern slave states, in which had formed a confederacy to keep slavery that is now prohibited. So, since they lost the Civil War, that is, the southern slaveholding states, they had to relinquish their rights to hold people captive into slavery. And I'm talking about Africans. Africans were brought on slave ships from Africa to be held captive in the United States. But let's get back into why these people would name a high school for children after someone who forced people into manual labor, who fought to keep people held against their will to do things like cooking, cleaning, housework, field handwork, and everything in between. You could only use your imagination to find out and discover what happens to people that are held against their will. This is why it was so important for the northern states under Abraham Lincoln to fight against the southern states for black people's freedom and American rights. And of course, slaves did rush to join this army, and they were protected by the northern states. When they lost, people in the southern states couldn't stand it. Of course, all slaves didn't get their freedom immediately, but it was apparent that it did happen, and it swept across the South. And then we talk about Reconstruction, which happened after. Yes, black people were still attacked, and they had to build from the ground up, but they did get rights immediately after the Civil War during the Reconstruction era. Now let's get into rights under the law for protection, freedom, being citizens like everyone else. Equal rights were established, and slavery was abolished. So this leader, Robert E. Lee, whom Lee High School was named after, decided to become a college president, in which he did finally give in that slavery was just not going to be a thing anymore. So he decided to fight for something else, and that was segregation. But you know what? Segregation was also a part of the system of slavery that was abolished. In the 1950s, when Lee High School was established, they were fighting for civil rights and did things like protests that were peaceful. And through all of the establishments of black people and colored people, there were a lot of people born out of slavery, because the slave masters took advantage of, or handlers took advantage of, enslaved people that fought for economic freedom and their rights to be a American citizen protected under the law. This is why it is so important to abolish the name General Robert Edward Lee from Lee High School because of what he stood for.